Well, thank you for joining us today. We're here talking with our local government officials today to give us an update on what's happening in Arvada and Jefferson County, and to allow people to ask questions and find out if there's anything that they need that we can help them with. And I will just allow our panelists to introduce themselves. Tell us a little bit about how long you've been on the council, and whatever else you'd like to tell us about. Why don't we start with you, Bob?
Yeah, I'm Bob Fifer. I've been on Arvada City Council for 9 years almost, and this is my third and final term as the Arvada council member at large. Dot Miller, if she shows up here, she'll be the other at large member, and she'll introduce herself. But I've been around for a little while, and prior to that, I was the president of Old Town Arvada, as well as own my own toy store. And today I work for CDOT, so I'm an essential employee and still have to work. So try to keep our roads open and available. So it's been quite busy for me during this time.
All right, Lauren, let's go with you next.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. It's good to be here. Thank you, Brianna, for welcoming us. So my name is Lauren Simpson. I am the council member for District 2, which is most of Eastern Arvada, including 2/3 of Old Town. Basically, it's Wadsworth, and then up to Kipling, and then over on 80th. All of that is District 2. I was elected in November, so I'm the new kid on council, unlike Bob, who's been around a little bit a while. But I'm learning quickly, and I'm enjoying it very, very much. My background is that I work in international relations. I'm a senior foreign policy and diplomacy officer for the government of Canada, serving the states of Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, and Kansas. I am American. I get that question a lot. It's usually the first question. I am American, but I act sort of as a bilateral liaison between the U.S. and Canadian governments at the state level. I also apologize for the noises in the background. That would be my 3-year-old. I'm a young mother. It's part of what made me want to run for council, was to sort of be a voice for the young families of Arvada and whatnot. And so she's gotten used to mom being home, so she's not quite used to these calls yet.
All right. And we have on the phone is Lesley Dahlkemper, and she is the Jefferson County Commissioner, and we just have to figure out how to get her unmuted real quick here so she can talk. Just 1 second here. And let's see, I think, is it *6 to unmute yourself? I don't remember. Maybe we can, we'll work this out. We'll get her unmuted here in a second. So I'm gonna be the host here real quick so I can figure out how we can get her. Oh, okay, there we go. All right, yeah, okay, that's it. We did it now.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Hello, hello?
There we go.
All right, good, thank you. Hi, thanks so much. Hi, everyone. We're all trying to navigate this technology together. This is Lesley Dahlkemper, Jeffco Commissioner, and I also chair the Jeffco Board of County Commissioners. It is great to be with you this afternoon and to hear more about your questions and your concerns. I really want to thank Representative Titone for hosting today's call, and for your leadership, Representative Titone. Grateful to our Arvada City Council members for your work to keep everyone safe and healthy in our community. I have served on the board for a little bit over a year now, and my background is more than 30 years in journalism, worked as a journalist for Colorado Public Radio for many years, and also in senior executive levels in both the nonprofit and private sector, and eager to hear your questions and to share a little bit more about what's happening at the county level, both in terms of public health and safety and just the regular work of the county that is underway as well.
All right. Well, thank you for being here today. So for all of the attendees who are on the town hall today, if you are using the Zoom, you should be able to look for the Q&A box and then open that up, and you can ask questions there. And while we're getting some updates from our panelists, you can start typing those in, and then once we get some questions in there, we will start asking them to the panelists and get those answered for you. So if you're on the phone, you could send me an email and we'll get those questions read for you from the email. Just email rep.brianna.titone@gmail.com. All right, so who would like to go first in kind of giving us a little overview of what's happening? Let's start at the local level and talk about Arvada for a minute. So either Bob or Lauren, would you like to go first?
I think we can both go and kind of share. You know, I'll kick us off, and Lauren, chime in when you want to. The city has been I'd say very proficient. We're just looking over stats this morning from our weekly memo, and specifically looking at, you know, right now, crime. I was curious about crime this week and curious if anything's changed. Actually, our police levels are at 90%, and actually the crime did drop during this time, which is great. And that's what I was just curious, is if crime was going down. It's a few things are picking up a little bit, but overall, the city is safe. It's operational. It's working. We're doing our core business, which is providing water, sewer, police services. We're still taking building permits and so forth. A lot of it's virtual. So the city is really, really right now still operating, but virtually, which is actually a change for a lot of city employees. So we have almost 700 employees that most of them are working from home now. So we want to keep the city moving forward. City Council has suspended some rules where we can work and meet virtually now. So you'll see this Monday night at 6 p.m. Will be our first full virtual City Council meeting. We did run a couple weeks ago when we had to suspend the rules. 4 of us had to be in the council chambers while 3 were virtual, and we got to do that, and it actually worked out really well. So we're excited that business can keep moving forward, and we can, you know, keep our projects moving forward. We can keep our funding keep going forward. So I think we're in a really good place right now. I don't know, Lauren, if you want to add anything to that.
I do. I wanted to kind of build upon what you said. Thank you, Bob. So I first and foremost want to thank our community partners, very specifically the Chamber of Commerce and the Arvada Economic Development Association, AIDA. They have been tremendous resources for businesses in our community. And if you are a business owner in our community, there's an entire toolkit on the Chamber website. I highly recommend you look at that, because there might be some resources available there for you, as well as our community partners who are very importantly serving the community in our police, notably both the community table, which is working really hard to feed people in this time. We've had so many people and our community workers who have lost their jobs, and what they're doing is incredibly important work, helping feed families. And then also Ralston House, which Bob noted that we've had 1 or 2 areas where criminal activity has spiked, and the one that's most concerning to me is domestic violence is one of the ones that has spiked, with everybody being quarantined in together. And so the work that our police officers as well as Ralston House is doing in that area for domestic violence and abuse is incredibly important. And so if you're looking for organizations to support in this time, those are 2 that I would very strongly recommend keeping in mind.
Yeah, and also you're hitting on some good community kind of service opportunities, as well as, you know, I want to highlight one of the things that I've been pretty proud of is the Chamber's recent request for donations, where what they're doing is they're taking donations in up to $200. The $200 buys meals from local restaurants that are currently, you know, semi-closed, and then giving those meals to either first responders, city workers, people that are essential employees, and health providers. In fact, I think they did This Thursday and Tuesday and Thursday, they're doing the police department and the fire department, I believe. I've actually donated $200 to pay for meals for the ER and COVID nurses and doctors at Lutheran for 2 weeks out. These are kind of things you can do as individuals that is local and help support. And a lot of us council members, as well as other community leaders, are out there trying to figure out ways to continue to support those folks. And this is one effort where the chamber takes care of everything for us. So not only does it keep the economy going, it also keeps the business hopefully open, and it pays attention to essential workers, both first responders and health providers, and even our public works folks. So, that's an opportunity if people are interested in helping out during this time, and especially in this community. That's a quick way to get a couple bangs for your buck. So I'd always encourage that. I was looking over some of the Q&A, Representative Titone, if you don't mind me looking at some of those things and answering a few of them. What I liked about Mindy's down below was talking about, there's broken glass and there's some bored teenagers and so forth. You also bring up something else I noticed in my neighborhood that's happening. When people go out on walks, they're taking trash bags and they're picking up trash as they're walking. This is a great opportunity to not only just get out and get some exercise, get some air, keep your social distance, but you know what? Take a trash bag and pick up a few things. There's plenty of trash out in this area all over Arvada, and I noticed it's getting cleaner and cleaner, which is interesting. But I just noticed the other day a couple of couples actually carrying trash bags and picking up trash as they're walking. Awesome. So if anyone's feeling like they would like to do some community service, that's another one that desperately needs it. And including our waterways. I've noticed our waterways get a lot of plastic bags in them and so forth, and it'd be nice to get those cleaned out. And this is a good opportunity as the pollution's going down. We can improve our environment by doing little things like this.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And that program Bob was talking about is called Chow for Champions.
Thank you. I couldn't remember the name.
No worries.
There's another question up there from Karen, Representative Titone. Do you want me to answer it? It's talking about being courteous on trails within our city. I don't know if we can actually address that. We did suspend our ranger program right now that are usually out on patrolling on our trails. All I can say is we all need to treat each other like humans and neighbors, and with the most respect and common courtesy. Unfortunately, I don't know if it will completely go away, but if it does get in an uncomfortable situation, I always encourage everyone to call 911, or the police will come out, or the park service, our park department is still out there patrolling. So if you ever see a city vehicle or anything like that, you're more than welcome to wave them down to get some help. So.
Any information on the trail system in Jefferson County while we have Lesley on the phone?
Sure, you bet. I can talk a little bit about Jeffco Open Space and what we're seeing in terms of our trails and parks. All of our parks and trails and restrooms are open, and as you can imagine, they're receiving extremely high record visitation. We ask that you visit trails and parks that are close to your home and that you abide by the governor's stay-at-home order. That includes not visiting those parks and public areas if you're not feeling well, if you're sick. We ask that you do not gather in groups larger than 4 individuals. Please, as always, practice social distancing of a minimum of 6 feet apart. And we saw the recent directive just a day or so ago to wear a face mask when you're in public. And then the other thing I'd recommend, 2 other tips, is avoid visiting parks during the peak hours, which are typically 9:30 to 2:30, especially on weekends. And the other tool that might be helpful, if you like apps, is Jeffco Open Space is testing a new app that involves our most popular parks and trails. And it is a parking app, and it'll show you which lots are full. And those are really good ones to avoid because we want to disperse as many visitors across all of our parks as possible to keep everyone healthy and safe.
All right, great. Thank you. There are a couple other questions here. Bob, if you want to look at the last question that Mindy asked, is in response to what you had said before. She wanted a little clarity to see if the city would actually encourage a community service competition
Yeah.
So that way, you know, we could engage the teenagers who might be a little bored and looking for something to do.
You know, that's a great suggestion. Let me Mindy, can I get back to you? Because what I'd like to do is discuss that with the leadership at the city of how can we maybe promote some sort of competition or, you know, some clean your neighborhood competition throughout the whole city. You know, I need to think of the logistics and so forth, but that's a great idea. I'll keep you posted, Mindy. I know how to get a hold of you, so I'll reach back out to you once I get more information, but I'm gonna go champion that idea. It's a great idea.
Bob, I'll champion that with you. I like that idea a lot. And speaking of things for kids to do, I don't know if this is really for teenagers, but it's excellent for young families, and it's something everyone very simple can do. There's a bit of a campaign going on right now for bears and bunnies in windows for parents who have young children who are going on walks around the neighborhoods. Since they can't go to playgrounds, since the playgrounds are all closed, a great way to keep the kids entertained is we're calling it a bear hunt. Bear and bunny hunt, where people put, and you can actually see my Yogi Bears right there in the window. You put a stuffed animal in the window, and then kids go around and they count the number of stuffed animals that they can find. So it helps young parents keep the kids entertained because they're looking for something, as well as working on counting and things like that. So it's a very simple thing that anyone can do if they live in a walkable neighborhood. And I would love to see Arvada really participating in this because it's a lot of fun. Brianna, you're still on mute.
Thanks. Yeah, I've heard about the teddy bears, and also I've seen around my neighborhood some people are going around painting those river stones out there and putting little words on them like hope and peace and love and things like that, which are, you know, there to try to keep people with their minds on a hopeful way of doing things. Let's look at a question here that we can ask Lesley. Steve would like to know what update there are in COVID testing that is taking place in Jefferson County, and what testing has taken place where, and what's really the truth around capacity and availability.
Sure. Let me share just a quick overview related to where we are first with our COVID-19 cases, and then I can dovetail into testing kits, and also protective gear has been a challenge, not only in Jeffco, but across Colorado and across our country. At the county level, Jeffco Public Health, led by Dr. Mark Johnson, is serving as the lead agency on COVID-19 with multiple partners, including the Sheriff's Office, Emergency Management, Human Services, County Manager's Office, commissioners, as well as our county elected officials and local, state, and other leaders as well. As of today, there are 14 known deaths and 477 total cases in Jefferson County. One of our major areas of focus, in addition to others, which I'd be happy to share with you at some point during the call as well, is an expanded outreach to vendors for both protective gear for healthcare workers and first responders, and then also continuing to identify avenues for testing kits. So let me take that one first, since that was the question. It continues to be a challenge, and we were just talking with our public health director, Dr. Mark Johnson, about this during a noon briefing call yesterday. And what we know is that there's testing taking place at both of our local hospitals, St. Anthony's and Lutheran, as well as in some, but we don't know how many or which local doctors' offices. Public testing is available at several urgent care sites, and while the testing is free, the urgent care charges are added for the service. We know that Kaiser is doing some testing as well, and another organization, Stride Community Health, is doing some drive-through testing at a Jeffco location, I believe the Wheat Ridge location, and you can go to Stride Health's website for more information, and also for dates and times of when they're doing the testing. The testing issue and access to testing continues to be a major challenge for all of us. And one of our specific challenges is just accessing those swabs that we need for testing. Jeffco Public Health has requested those repeatedly, as has our coroner, Dr. Annette Cannon, through the state's Web Emergency Operations Center process. But it has been a week for public health in terms of waiting for a response, and 2 weeks for the coroner. We still have not quite heard anything yet. Local government leaders also participate in calls twice a week with the heads of different state agencies. And we know that they're also working tirelessly on this issue. One other quick note about protective gear. I want to give a huge shout out to our community and thank you. We participated in a protective gear drive last Saturday and want to thank the work of our local chambers who helped coordinate that alongside hospitals in Jeffco and the county's public health team. And the community stepped up, as it always does in Jeffco, as you always do, donating close to 30,000 gloves, 4,000 medical masks, 200 medical gowns and aprons, and much more. So that's a little bit about testing, and then I thought I'd also weave in the protective gear piece as well.
There's a follow-up question to that saying, how do we know where the county is regarding the curve? Are we climbing sharply, or are we starting to see any leveling off?
Well, it's interesting you raise that. We're still continuing to go up. We're not quite flattening yet, which is why following the governor's stay-at-home order and Jeffco's, ours came out before the governor's. It was actually that morning, and then the governor announced his later that afternoon. So we rescinded ours and replaced it with the governor's stay-at order. So there's consistency, and we wanted to create less confusion for residents as well, but we still have our work cut out for us. Some of you may know that Jeffco schools, along with other large metro area school districts, announced just yesterday that it will continue remote learning through the end of the school year. We've just extended our emergency declaration in the county to April 30th, again, to match what we're hearing from the governor as well. So we're continuing to work on that. We still have work to do to flatten the curve.
All right. Well, thank you. We've got another question because you're not able to read the screen, so I'll just read another question for you. Public health has been on the front lines, and communication from Jeffco has been superbly done. How hard has it been to absorb the strain on county resources in the wake of 1A, the debrucing not passing? And how is our public safety team doing, especially with the jail releases?
Sure, you bet. Let me, so two questions, one related to the overall funding health of Jefferson County, and then a specific question about the Jeffco Sheriff's Office. Take the funding question first. That's correct. 1A, which was an initiative that asked voters for permission to keep the surplus dollars above the Tabor cap that the county has already authorized to collect and put it toward essential county services, failed to win support. So the county, even before the COVID-19 pandemic, was facing $12 million in budget cuts. Our finance team, which we're working with very closely, is now analyzing the numbers. And starting next week, we will have regular updates on COVID-19 related expenses facing the county. In addition to this, we're also analyzing what the different stimulus packages mean for county funding as well. In addition, I want to also send a huge thank you to the Community First Foundation and the Jeffco Hope Fund that it created. Community First seeded that with $1 million to help local nonprofits and government entities continue to serve our community. And I can talk a little bit later about those human services needs, which are so critical in terms of food distribution, housing assistance, and more. Let me shift gears for a moment to, that was a long way of saying that we're still looking to see what that financial picture looks like. And I don't even want to begin to speculate, but I am deeply concerned about what the pandemic means for the county in terms of our overall budget and providing essential services and programs. But until I see the actual data, I'd like to wait. And as soon as I have more information on that note, I am happy to share it with you. Regarding the Sheriff's Office, the Jeffco Sheriff's team is on our regular briefing calls as well. You may have heard that one of its deputies tested positive for COVID-19. In addition to, and is home recuperating. 2 deputies recently assisted a victim who was positive for COVID-19. Those deputies were tested on Thursday, and 3 more deputies were exposed in response to an individual who sadly had passed away and was positive for COVID-19. The jail population in particular, thanks to the joint efforts of the DA's office, the sheriff, courts, justice services, is down 40%. Which is significant, or 700 inmates in the jail versus 1,100 inmates, that anywhere from 1,100 to 1,200 inmates, depending on fluctuation day to day, which you typically see in the jail. There are a number of inmates who are isolated. The deputies who work with those inmates in the jail are taking every precaution possible for both the inmate safety and for their safety. I would just add to please keep our first responders and our county coroner in your thoughts. The best way to help our first responders, of course, is by staying at home, and if you have to go out, wearing that face mask and socially distancing yourself as well.
Great. Thank you for that. We've got a few other questions here that have been sitting here for a while. Arvada-related questions. Would Bob or Lauren like to go through those and answer some of those?
So I'll go ahead and take the budget one that I saw. If you don't mind, Bob, I'm sure you can tag in on me in a minute. But I wanted to echo basically what Lesley was saying. I don't want to talk about measures that I think we should be taking right now, because right now we don't know the scope of the fallout. We don't know how quickly people are going to get back to work, and we don't know just exactly how much aid is going to be coming in to shore up budgets. So I don't want to be discussing we must do A, B, and C in order to rectify this, because we don't even know what the final picture is going to look like yet. That said, obviously we are probably going to be looking at some budget cuts in the next fiscal year or two. I don't want to say how much, because again, we don't know. But that is something that we're going to have to take a very serious look at in the coming future as this picture fully develops. I will say that fortunately there should be some aid coming our way from the CARES Act, the federally passed legislation. In particular, part of the CARES Act, it allotted several $billions for every state to then shore out to counties, municipalities, other organizations, and whatnot as needed. I don't know the exact Colorado amount. I want to say it was somewhere around the 12 to 13 billion mark, but please don't quote me on that. And from there, it'll be on our state leaders such as Brianna to work with the governor to ensure that Jefferson County, City of Arvada are able to be able to access resources. And then there's also going to be grant funding and loan forgiveness working through the Small Business Administration, as well as some of the other federal government agencies that organizations such as the Arvada Center can apply for, so that they are able to access funds to shore up their budgets. And that way the city can redistribute some of its fundings to other much needed priority areas.
Yeah, and to add on to there, we're going to be reviewing possibly some opportunities where the city might be able to help out some of our businesses. I think we're discussing, I was just pulling it up as she was speaking. I think we're going to talk about it on Monday, if I believe it, under emergency ordinance, talk about the ability of maybe some funding we can put out there. We're not sure what that looks like, but we're discussing it on Monday as a city. So a lot going on. You know, the city's done very well, as in when we talk about COVID. I wanted to kind of hit a few things around COVID. We spent over $52,000 in supplies for our first responders and employees, which is relatively low. And one of the reasons why, and I want to talk about the positives that our community is doing, is one is we're getting masks made and donated to a lot of our first responders, which is keeping our expenses down, especially now when tax revenue may not be coming in. Example, you know, we have small businesses that are seamstress, are working hard and to create cotton masks for citizens and for first responders. In fact, I'm going to go pick up some today just to support a local a business, the Wedding Seamstress. And then you got everything from people that own 3D printers are printing actually face shields for our fire department right now. Local citizens supporting local first responders. This is a sense of community that's finally coming together. And I'm saying finally because we haven't seen this in such a long time. And even though it's really, you know, an unfortunate event that's happening right now, there's a sense of community coming together and taking care of one another. And I get goosebumps just hearing all of the positive stories of what people are doing out there to bring it. And I think this dollar amount really shows how much people are pulling together to take care of one another. And that's awesome. And we need to keep that going.
Also, real quick, in terms of tax revenue, I will say that Arvada, a good number of our primary tax revenue generators are considered essential businesses, our grocery stores, Costco, Sam's Club, etc. So Arvada, I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but we might fare better than some of the other municipalities in Jeffco and the surrounding region, simply by the nature of what our business makeup is. That's not to say we won't see a fallout. We absolutely will, and we're going to have to treat that very seriously. But as of the moment we're in today, it looks like we're going to be just a little bit less behind than some of our neighboring communities, for what that's worth.
Yeah, and this kind of answers Katie Winter's question around what are we doing around sales tax. We're very healthy city. You know, we've been very frugal and thoughtful about what and how we spend. Plus, we've kept upwards of 17% reserves on every one of our enterprise funds, which we will dip into if we need to. But right now we don't. And just like Council Member Simpson said, you know, we do a lot of our taxes come around. We're one of the few cities that solely, well, I wouldn't say solely, but pretty much all of our tax money comes from grocery stores. And not all communities have that. And so there is a sustainable tax revenue for our community, and we're going to share it back and help out all of our businesses to make sure they stay vibrant during this time, or as much as they can.
Representative Tone, may I also jump in on
Sure.
the tax conversation as well? You know, many of you know that the governor announced extensions for counties to collect property taxes as well as valuation reports, which are collected by the county assessor. And the governor announced an extension until May 1st for filing property taxes, which, of course, as many of you know, is the main source of funding for the county's general revenue fund. That's the fund that is taking the greatest hit in terms of those budget cuts that I mentioned earlier. The governor has also waived, as many of you may know, interest payments for property taxes, plus earlier he waived penalties and fees. And you can also split your property tax payments without penalty or interest accruing against you. The governor's executive order grants county treasurers that flexibility that they need to work with taxpayers on their property tax payments. And you can find more at jeffco.us and just click on the treasurer's landing page. County Treasurer Jerry DiTullio has some great information for you, user-friendly and very helpful. Same extension of several deadlines related to evaluation reports collected by the county assessor's office as well. And then one other, if I could also dovetail with some comments that were made about chambers and providing assistance and support for our local businesses. At the county level, we're also here to help and complement the efforts of our local chambers in assisting the business community, especially with strategies to avoid everything from layoffs to talent matching to virtual hiring events. Jeffco created a business resources link on the Business and Workforce Center's webpage. Again, if you go to jeffco.us and then go to Business and Workforce Center, you'll find more information, and those business resources are right at your fingertips, constantly updated to reflect the information that we're getting as these various stimulus packages are introduced as well. The other quick thing I wanted to share with you is that the Jeffco Business and Workforce Center is also hosting virtual panel discussions each week. And the center kicked off its first one yesterday with more than 200 participants from the business community. More details, again, at jeffco.us. And I have to also give yet another shout out to our local chambers, including the Arvada Chamber. They have truly been on the front lines of helping businesses stay in business and navigate these incredibly challenging times. They've launched the initiative we heard about a moment earlier, Takeout Takeover. The campaign spotlights local businesses across Jeffco offering curbside food and retail pickup. And the Chamber's website certainly have more info, and Arvada Chamber has just been incredible in terms of stepping up. I think our challenge as elected officials is always making sure that we're advocating for different constituencies in our community. So when we're on calls with Congressman Perlmutter or Congressman Neguse, in my case, I represent a number of our mountain communities, or with the governor or with our U.S. senators, that we're always reminding them how important it is to support our local businesses and to also support our local chambers who are not receiving membership dollars coming in, of course, because local businesses are suffering right now. We want to make sure that we can keep those doors open for our local chambers because they're doing incredibly important work. So we're working hard also to advocate for them and funding at the federal level to support their efforts.
Great. Thank you. That was a great answer for that. Let's try to get these questions that we have in our Q&A box. Anyone want to start off with the first one about what to do if you are at a work that you feel that your job is not essential to be in the office, but you're being forced to come in?
Well,
anybody want it?
Well, I'll jump in. I mean, this is just an anecdotal. I mean, it's not a city response, but yeah, trust me. Being an essential employee for CDOT, I have to come in. My team has to come in. I have several employees that have to come in. This concern has been raised by some of my employees, so I'm sharing more of my professional experience with this than anything. The best thing to do is hope, and I'm hoping your employer does all this, but what we've been doing for our employees that have to come in is having cleaning crews there all day long, cleaning every touchable surface. That happens almost 12, 15 hours a day, even though there's only a few people in the office that are essential. We have all the cleaning supplies available to the employees. We have all disinfectants, available wipes for all of our employees. And then we've been posting about washing hands and keeping people out of areas that they have a feeling of, coming together and they need to stay separate, and reminding people to keep their distance. So unfortunately, if your employer sees you as an essential employee still, hopefully they're creating an environment that keeps it healthy for right now. So that's what we're doing in our office to keep it healthy at the state level. So hopefully you're doing the same thing, or your employer's doing the same thing.
And another recommendation for those who are seen as essential employees by their employer, where it makes sense in an office environment, is rotating of schedules, particularly if some parts of your job can be done working from home. What we've done at the consulate is we literally have sort of a schedule. So our office administrator will be in on a Monday, our consular officer will be in on Wednesday, etc., so that we minimize exposure people have to one another. More often than not, there's only one person in the office, though it is a small office. And so with the cleaning crews coming through every week as well, it helps. And we've shut down offices where people are not in, so that nobody enters or exits those offices to keep those clean as well. It just helps to minimize the exposure that people have to one another. We are covering parking for people who have to come in so that they do not have to pay for public transportation and be exposed in that way. And it seems to be working fairly well. I also always recommend talking to your boss. If you believe that you can complete your job functions at home safely and adequately, talk to your boss. I think we're all in this together. That's why our hashtag is we're in it together, Arvada, and we can do this, Arvada. I think it's important to talk about your concerns, particularly as this comment noted, the husband, I believe, is in quarantine due to exposure. And so if you believe you need to quarantine, safety is the most important thing. Talk to your boss, talk to your city manager. I guarantee you something can be worked out. People just need to talk to each other.
Okay, the next one is, how is the city getting folks in Arvada to follow the governor's advice on wearing masks? Or is there anyone actually enforcing that?
Well, we're not enforcing that. We're encouraging it. And obviously we're in alignment with both the county public officials and the county, as well as the state and the governor on these health protocols. So we're just going to keep reiterating it through social media and encouraging people to do it. Today, I had to go out for our grandparents. I had to get them some needed essentials from the Target, and I wore a mask. And it's unfortunate that we have to go in and disguise ourselves because we were at that one point where it was all about Homeland Security, not covering your face, and now we're worried about our health. And it's interesting when you walk into a Target and everyone has face masks on, which is good because I think there's mostly compliant. I'd say we're not quite 100%, but I'd say at least 80% of the people in the Target there on Kipling this morning were wearing them. I think we just need to self-regulate, and the more people that are wearing them, like I said, I'm going to get some better cloth ones tonight from a local business. And I think if we're wearing them when we're out in groups, it'll become, unfortunately, the new norm, and hopefully peer pressure will do it. I don't think we're going to be at this point having our police enforce anything like that.
Right. Representative Titone, I would add quickly to that, just very briefly. I think this is really our opportunity to step up in terms of our own personal responsibility and our own individual efforts to flatten the curve. And there may be some question marks for some about, well, where can I even get a mask? There are lots of creative materials you can use to make a mask that don't even involve cutting or sewing, using bandanas and ponytail holders. It's interesting. We received a chart from Dr. Johnson with Public Health, and it identified the most effective materials for masks. And what struck me is that the second most effective material for making a mask was actually a vacuum bag because they are so tightly woven. So you could probably get creative in terms of using those materials or others, right down to scarves, which aren't as effective, but they're certainly on the list of materials. So sometimes just Googling different materials and resources is helpful to better understand what options you might have right in your very home, and you might be surprised to see what's available to you.
Yep, and several of the major publications, I know the New York Times for certain has how to make a mask at home using regular household items, and the COVID coverage is free from most major publications. So I highly recommend looking around, as Lesley said, Googling it or looking at the major newspapers. They all have articles on this that you can find on their websites with how-to instruction guides. It's arts and crafts time.
Yep, that's right. All right, we have another question here about City Council in Arvada. On the agenda for this Monday night, you have several options to give dollars towards business relief. Can you briefly discuss how these options were created, what each are, and your thoughts and feelings on the options? And what feedback do you need from the community to make the best choice for Arvada?
I'll take a stab at it first, and if Lauren wants to jump in, she's more than welcome. So there are a lot of questions in that, Katie. So let me kind of break it up a little bit. How did these options come up? Let me kind of explain a few of the proposed actions. One is Arvada is proposing a $10,000 zero interest loan program for businesses with $2,500 forgivable if the loan is payments are met. So not only is it zero interest for $10,000, but if they're making payments towards it, we'll forgive 25% of it. That's not an uncommon. We've done that in the past when we had the recession and so forth. So this is out of the Arvada Economic Development Association. That's a branch of the city that kind of supports our businesses. That's kind of a fill the gap kind of move until the federal programs can kick in. We'll continue to waive late fees and interest on sales and use tax for utility bills up to 12 months. So we're trying to be a little bit flexible there. Also, we're exploring a 5% interest COVID relief loan in partnership with the Colorado Enterprise Fund to deploy $25,000 loans to business within a 10-day closing period. The idea of that loan is to try to get some money into the business's hands quicker than the feds are doing right now. So, I mean, those are just some of those tactics, and those aren't anything new. We've done similar things in the past when we have a concern with our business groups. This is going to be all discussed during a workshop. So what's interesting about this Monday nights, it's both a business meeting and a workshop. Typically we do business meetings on the first and third Mondays, and workshops where we do not make decisions on Tuesdays Mondays on the second Mondays and fourth Mondays of the month. Sorry, I'm getting they're all blending right now. We're in this house all the time. I'm with every day's Monday, it feels like. This week we are going to do a double kind of meeting. One, we're going to try to get some administrative work approved and blessed through our business meeting, and then we'll move into a workshop. And this particular discussion is our main focus, is what can we do? What is the staff pulling together? What is the team looking at doing? And then how do we collaborate and support? Just like Commissioner Dahlkemper said, is how do we make sure we keep our chamber and other supporting groups vibrant, and they survive through this, and that they continue to help, because those individuals, those nonprofits and the chamber are kind of like a pebble in a pond. They have a ripple effect. And so we want to keep them healthy and vibrant through this process, just like the community table does, and other nonprofits that are helping other people's needs as well. So anyways, that's kind of what's going on with the options. I would encourage everyone to tune in on Channel 8, or if you don't have cable, you can go onto our website, and there's a live streaming that you can go in there. We will be taking questions just like here. So please join us. We look forward to having a new remote virtual city council meeting on Monday night.
Perfect. I actually think Bob really nailed it. I look forward to the workshop, hearing the answers and whatnot. And it's just, I want to remind everyone, it's critically important to help our businesses stay alive, because because people are our workers. And so when the businesses are able to reopen the doors and people are able to get back to work, they're able to get off the unemployment assistance, which is, we're seeing record spikes beyond record. We're shattering records right now. And so that we can get people back to work and taking care of their families and doing the things they need to do. I support the governor's actions on eviction moratoriums and whatnot to help people during this time. And as this thing unfolds, we'll see what other options are available to us to protect our residents and get everyone, get the economy rolling again once all of this finally winds down.
Yeah, and I want to add that, what can citizens do, or what feedback do we need, Katie? I think the best thing to do is still support the local businesses. You will not only support your local government, but you're going to support that business. You're going to support employment. You're going to support the sales tax. You're going to end up supporting so many more supply chain matters by just continue to support. Even if it's as small as going to a small shop or a local restaurant, and buying gift cards. When we get out of this, you will have plenty of gift cards to go, and I'm sure all the restaurants will be packed when we're out of here. I think we're ready to all go out and spend a little time out at our restaurants and gathering with friends and family. So this is a good time to support your local business by buying those gift cards, unless you want to buy a takeout once a week or twice a week or 5 days a week, but takeout's still an option as well. So that's the best thing I think our citizens can do right now.
All right, and there's a question about cases and or deaths in Arvada. Does anybody have the numbers for that?
I do know that we have had cases in Arvada. However, I do not know the numbers locally for deaths. I don't know if Lesley has some numbers for Jeffco on that. I do know that we will not identify anyone who has been in that case simply because of their HIPAA rights. So we can't identify individuals, which is the appropriate action to not identify them. But I'm afraid I don't know the number of deaths.
I don't have specific numbers for Arvada, and I'm not certain that they're broken out in that way. Although, if you go to jeffco.us, you'll see a pop-up box that says COVID-19. If you click on the first link, it will provide a number of resources. One of those resources is the data breakdown on COVID-19 cases. And for those of you who may have joined us a little bit later in the call, I'll share again that unfortunately, as of right now, we have 14 known deaths. That, of course, is countywide, not Arvada, and then 477 total cases countywide. And that information is updated daily on the jeffco.us website too.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. We just need to make sure we're doing our part, and we can try to keep those numbers down. Here's a question about some of the workforces that are going to be in trouble right now, especially in the oil and gas industry where this is a severe downturn. How do you think this is going to affect Arvada residents and homeowners?
Well, I think it will be anecdotal. I mean, unfortunately, if we're not supporting local businesses or even any business right now, there's going to be layoffs, as we've already seen in the bar and restaurant. I mean, it's an interesting situation right now because you see like Amazon, you see, I think it was Family Dollar, Kroger. There are several, and I've been putting them on LinkedIn, but there's several companies that are hiring hundreds of thousands of people right now. So it might be people moving from one sector, work sector to another, at least temporary. You know, they need to keep employed and help the supply chain. So I can anecdotally, you know, it makes me a little worried that if we talk about affecting our citizens, yeah, it's going to affect houses. It could be foreclosures. I mean, we could go into a recession or depression if we don't continue to, you know, focus on our businesses as well as focus on our own health. So those are two important things as we get through the next 30 plus days.
I will say the oil issue is far larger than our municipal, county, or even state government. What we're seeing right now is Russia and Saudi Arabia get into a price-cutting fight in the attempt to drive the other out of business, essentially. And we are trying at the international level to cut more than 10 million barrels a day from the supply chain because we have fewer transportation needs. And you see two governments trying to get into a war with each other to try and seize the market. So this is far above our heads. And the federal government of the United States is playing a significant role in trying to mediate this conflict so as to prevent that, because our shale producers are a massive part of our economy. And that is what Saudi Arabia and Russia are trying to get out right now, is undercutting those markets. That said, I will say we have here in Colorado an extremely well diversified economy, which is wonderful because anytime a single industry such as energy gets seized, we are able to keep the economy up. Right now, we're seeing multiple industries get seized across the nation, which is the problem. However, as things return to normal, ideally, what we will see in the energy markets is a stabilization effect from OPEC and hopefully a lessening of tensions between Saudi Arabia and Russia, again, far above our heads. But in terms of Arvada, we will hopefully be able to have workers be able to transfer their skills because we are not a single energy market state. We have renewable resources, we have processing, we have places where those skills are in demand. And so ideally, we will not see a massive layoff and hampering upon the state economy and our local residents as the shale industry undergoes these challenges to it. And ideally, hopefully, the shale industry will be stabilized as the issues at the international level stabilize.
I would just add, more broadly, looking at the numbers of unemployment, individuals filing for unemployment during these difficult times, and seeing those numbers skyrocket, not only here, but across the state and across the country, that we're also working very hard as a county in close collaboration with our local municipalities, state and federal leaders to ensure that community support services to avoid disruptions and to help those in our community who may be vulnerable because of job losses, unemployment, other reasons. We've got a Jeffco Community Needs Task Force that consists of several working groups that are focused on everything from housing and homelessness to food and emergency assistance, healthcare, volunteers, coordinated communications, and a lot more. It's predominantly led by Jeffco Public Health and Human Services, but all of the work groups involve stakeholders from multiple parts of the Jeffco community. You know, one of the things we're also seeing in our community are nonprofits and others really stepping up to help individuals in our community. A number of us participate on weekly calls with our area nonprofits, foundations. There's some businesses, members of the faith community who are also involved in those conversations and are hearing in real time some of the challenges our nonprofits are facing in supporting more vulnerable populations in our community. Two of the biggest areas include just a decrease that they're seeing in their volunteer base, because many of their volunteers, of course, are retired. They're aging adults who are also in the vulnerable category when it comes to COVID-19, and also a decrease in food. And they're welcoming non-perishable food items to keep their shelves stocked, and donations if you are able. Tied to this are also mental health resources. They're a key component. Just a quick note, on April 9th at 5:30 p.m., Jeffco Public Health and Jefferson Center for Mental Health are partnering to host Coping with COVID-19, and we'll have more information on that telephone town hall style event coming up shortly. But I just wanted to share a little bit more about the human services aspect and efforts that various stakeholders across Jeffco are doing, and Jeffco's coordinated effort to address those needs as well.
Great, thank you. And I've had a question from an oil and gas worker who had lost his job, and I talked a little bit with Congressman Perlmutter's office, and they are working on a federal bill that will help out the industry, because they are expecting quite a few job losses with the price of oil as low as it is. This particular person ended up finding a job in solar. So if there are people that are losing their jobs right now and need to pick something up, there are some jobs, and the Jeffco Workforce website does have some of those. I want to we don't have a lot of time left. We're up at our 3 o'clock end time, but I wanted to answer this one question about the legislature and our 120 days. We did get back the information from the Supreme Court saying that their interpretation said we could, under these very unusual circumstances, continue our legislative session of 120 days without taking into consideration these lapses and recesses that we've had. So we will be able to have the rest of those days, 50-some days that we have remaining. Now, statutorily, we only have to finish the budget and the School Finance Act, and the Joint Budget Committee is scheduled to meet this week to talk about where they're going, because the budget has been really changing a lot. The forecasts have been changing very rapidly as we've gotten through the month of March. So the actual budget numbers are, it's actually good that we're waiting a little bit, because we actually have to wait for the most accurate forecast that we can, so we don't actually over budget the money that we may not end up having, because we are looking at $1 billion or more of shortfall in the budget as of this moment, and it could be worse than that, but we will be able to determine that later on. And the money that's coming out of that CARES Act cannot go to fill in our budget, just our regular general fund budget. It can only go to the relief efforts. So if we lose a lot of money in our budget because of our Tabor limit and the lack of income that we have, we cannot get the federal government to fill that in. So that's a big issue that we have, is that we can't rely on the federal government to give us that money. So we will be looking at that in the next few, this week. We'll be getting that moving along to try to get the budget done. It does have to be done by June, so we do have a hard deadline there. We do have a couple extra questions left. I will allow the panelists to answer those from email if they can. We'll just copy those and get those to you so you can answer those questions. I think we know mostly how we can get, except for the last one. If we can get an email address from the last question that just came in, we'll get that answer to you. But I want to thank panelists, Commissioner Dahlkemper and Councilor Simpson and Councilor Fifer for being here with us and answering these questions for for the attendees, and we're going to archive this video for people to come back to, and they can listen to it again and get the answers if they missed the live stream or the live meeting. So thank you very much again for being here, and if there's any way that people can contact you, you want to just let them know?
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to thank Representative Brianna Titone for doing these informative virtual meetings. They've been great. I watched your Thursday one with the business folks. Great job putting these together. So again, thank you for keeping these going and keeping all of our citizens informed. So thank you. The other thing I want to thank is obviously my council member Simpson. Right, I'm pointing down like it's like the Brady Bunch. I feel like.
You see, and you're down for me.
Yeah. And also Commissioner Lesley Dahlkemper. Commissioner, you're doing such a stewardship job of taking care of our county, and it's a steady hand we need. And in a time like this, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your leadership, the other commissioners' leadership during this time, because it's really at this moment, and some of our citizens may not be aware of this, but we look to the county and to the state to guide us through these times. And I just want to say thank you for your leadership and your steady hand on the wheel for us.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And I think more than anything, one of our greatest strengths in Jeffco is our ability to come together to address these pressing problems together as a team. And I think we have an extraordinary team of people with a lot of heart and leadership and ability to listen and really come together to solve these problems. And I can't thank council members of Fifer and Simpson enough for your leadership at the municipal level and always keeping us in the loop in terms of how we can help support you and how we can continue to work together. And Representative Titone, you've been extraordinary at the state level, and grateful for your efforts to organize this call so we can continue to work together and inform our community. And I know we will get through this. There is no question. And we'll do it together. And these next few weeks, I think, will be especially challenging. We've weathered many crises as a county, although none quite like this, but we've done it together. So I'm grateful to be able to be on the team with you. And I also send thanks from my colleagues on the Board of County Commissioners as well to each of you.
Yeah, and absolutely. It's from our entire council and mayor too. So thank you. And also real quick, you said how to contact us. I put mine in the chat box. So if anyone wants to contact me, it's over in the chat box.
No worries. My final thoughts are, yes, absolutely. Thank you to Representative Titone for inviting us today, hosting this. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you to my colleague, Councilman Fifer. Thank you, Commissioner Dahlkemper. It's absolutely great to hear your voice today and your leadership at the county level. My contact information is lsimpson@arvada.org, LSIMPSON@arvada.org. And my phone number where you can call me or text me is 720-900-1444, and I'll put that into the Q&A as well.
And then I'll just add super quick, my contact information is L Dahlkem, because my last name was too long to fit in the email address. So it's L, D like David, AHLKEM like Mary, L Dahlkem @jeffco.us. And you can also reach me on my cell phone at 303-638-3433. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. We will conclude all this here and get this up online the next, at least hopefully today or maybe tomorrow. Thanks again, and thank you for joining us, all the attendees.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Be safe out there. Wear your masks.
You too.
Bye.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.